Peace in, everyone. My name is Trey McVell, and we are about to slice the movie pie of John Wick, the Boogeyman. Sit back and relax, guys, because we are about to get into some action goodness as we do the movie pie review of John Wick. I gotta say, guys, first in the opening remarks here, when this movie came out, it was not on my radar at all. Keanu Reeves was not on my radar at all, and I don't think Keanu Reeves is a horrible actor. He's just not an actor that, at the time at least, I was looking forward to new projects or anything like that. But when I saw that first trailer for John Wick, I got goosebumps. It just had me excited. I did not realize that I was in a mood for some action goodness until that first trailer came out. I got goosebumps. I'm like, man, when was the last time I saw a good action movie? And it's definitely like that trailer put out. It was promising to be a very unique action movie, right? It was a classic revenge movie, but it was a unique revenge movie. And it had some promising. So I was really excited. I was concerned as well as excited. And the reason I was concerned is because first-time directors, Chad Stahelski and David Leitch, I was not sure what to expect from them. And then when I found out that at least one of them, maybe even both, were ex-stuntmen, I believe actually one of them was stuntman. I think Chad Stahelski was the stuntman for Keanu Reeves when he did Neo in the Matrix. I was like, maybe I, get some good old popcorn fun. So I was open for it. And so I wasn't sure what I was going to expect because that was one of my concerns. But I did not care. I was excited to get the movie in the first place because during that time, there was a lot of superhero stuff going on. And don't get me wrong, I love me some superhero goodness. But, I didn't know that I needed a good old action movie. And if you guys remember, you saw that first trailer, that trailer just scaled the internet. It was just amazing. So what is this movie about? It is simply about an ex-hitman who got out of retirement because of love, got married, and then these gangsters killed a dog that his dying wife gave him, and he's gotta get the revenge. So it's a classic revenge story as well as a classic action movie. So really, really excited about that. So listen, guys, this is what we're going to do. This is a movie pie. So we're going to get into the slices. That will be the screenplay, the performances, the visuals, and then the audio, and then the direction, and of course the experience. Those are the slices. That's the forecast for you. And then after that, we'll get into what I call Trey's tweaks. And that will be where I give some tweaks, if you will, that may perhaps increase the score. After that, we tally up the movie pie results and we'll give you the final score, the final movie pie of this. So without further ado, let us move on to the first slice of this movie pie, and that would be the screenplay. For an action movie, I was really impressed with how well written the story was. You know what I mean? From typical action movies, we don't really expect the story to be anything spectacular, but I gotta say, for an action movie, this was not only, but it was well written. People forget about the action movies. The screenplay, I gotta say, it took me by surprise because I was expecting a whole lot of action, but I got action, but I got story, but most importantly, I got world. Folks, this was actually a pretty interesting screenplay. And so, yes, as I mentioned before, this is your revenge story, but it's not a typical revenge story. You see, normally in revenge stories, it is usually the loved one themselves that, because of course, in this movie, you have the gangsters, the mobsters, the punk kids, as I call them, they kill John Wick's dog. Now, in your typical action movies, at least the ones that I've seen, typically they would kill the wife, or the wife would die, and the revenge would be about avenging the wife. But this screenplay gave us a twist. You see, the wife at the beginning of the movie, she already died. She died of natural causes. And then because of the world John Wick came from, she knew her husband well enough to know he was going to be a loner. He was going to deal with that in a very, very hard fashion. And so what she did was she gave him this dog. And the dog was so cute. That was a cute dog. But she gave him this dog as a dying gift, a gift from his dying wife. That was amazing because they set it up where he gets attached to this dog and he bumps into these guys at the gas station and they see the dog and they bump into his house and they kill the dog. And that is amazing because the revenge story is about the dog. Obviously, it's more than about the dog. It was the last gift from his dying wife, but they killed his dog and these guys got to go. Like, you feel for John Wick, but you do not feel for these guys. They gotta go. You know what I mean? So I gotta say, I was absolutely impressed by how well written the story was. And yes, it was pretty thin in terms of, in that matter, but it gave us some uniqueness. And the other uniqueness that it gave us, guys, you gotta say, the characters was fantastic. People forget that the characters, that's an element of the screenplay. It's an ingredient in the pie substance. It's an ingredient in the screenplay. These were some pretty well-written characters. I thought these characters were pretty believable. These characters seemed like they belonged in the ecosystem of the John Wick world. And speaking of the John Wick world, that's it, guys. That was the writing on the wall in terms of how impressive this screenplay was. They created a world in the Continental and in the Cleaners. In this whole criminal underground that was just amazing. I mean, top notch, something like we've never seen before. I mean, come on now. We've seen mobsters and gangsters and criminal undergrounds before, but not like this. This was unique. This was different with the golden coins and the old phones. It was just something like I haven't been seen before. And as I said at the opening remarks, I didn't feel like I was needing a good action movie, but I got a good screenplay out of this action movie. So that was really well. So that was the up. Now let me give you the down. You see, because there were some things that I thought about this screenplay, though I absolutely love the world. I really love the characters. I thought they fit really well within the world. And yes, I love that it was a twist. It was a different type of screenplay. But the down is this. First, the dialogue, it wasn't the best. You got that scene where Keanu Reeves, John Wick, is in the scene. He's like, hey, people keep asking me my back and I haven't really been giving them an answer. Well, yes, I'm back. I'm thinking I'm back. Look, as far as the screenplay, the dialogue just wasn't the best. That was not the best dialogue, but you bought into it because, he's John Wick saying it. And so, it didn't, it was still all in good fun, but it wasn't the best dialogue. So that's the one thing. And the other thing is that, do you guys remember when Viggo decided to go after John Wick? Like, he was afraid of John Wick throughout the whole movie. And then all of a sudden he turned and he wanted to go after John Wick. He wanted to kill John Wick. Now, I had a lot of friends that were just like, that was completely ridiculous. There's no reason why he should have wanted to go after John Wick after he had been scared. But I say, I thought I think it was pretty amazing, actually. And it made sense. Because if you think about it, Viggo gave John Wick the place to find his son after, John broke out of his custody. And John went and did the deal. He went and killed his son. He got rid of his son. And so Viggo, you can kind of see that, the character is kind of at a loss. He's kind of at the end of his ropes. He's feeling basically he went out to John almost like at a death wish. That's the way I looked at it. I thought it was kind of like a death wish. So it made sense to me why Viggo would want to go after John Wick. But guys, what did not make sense to me was why John wanted to fight Viggo. You guys remember that? You guys remember in the end where John Wick got a gun and he had been killing people throughout the movie quite well, I might say. But he's been popping people off throughout the entire movie. And then you have Viggo, in the rain, wanted to go out to John Wick and they got the 1-2, right? But here's the thing. What's crazy about that is I understand why Viggo wanted to go after John, but why in the world would John want to fight Viggo? You going to toss away the gun, John? That's pretty ridiculous. I mean, come on. You going to toss away the gun so you can fight Viggo? Why not just shoot him? Just get it over with. You were the one who's supposed to not want to be about the business anymore? You want to fight Viggo? Anyway, I just thought that was pretty ridiculous that they wrote in there that he would fight Viggo. Again, it made sense why Viggo would want to fight John, but not John wanting to fight Viggo instead of just killing him like he's been doing to everybody else in this film. Especially considering that the Viggo had killed his, pretty much probably his only friend in this industry, in this underworld. Yeah, Viggo killed your boy. He killed your boy. You would think he would just want to kill Viggo, but no, that I thought that was ridiculous. The other thing I thought it was ridiculous was this. That scene where John is in Viggo's custody, and this is the most irate that we have seen Viggo throughout the entire film. The entire film, Viggo has been kind of afraid, but he's still been kind of collected. But, when John, burned all of the leverage in that church, Viggo was just not having it. He was upset. He was afraid. And, he was incensed. He gets John into custody. John is tied up in a chair. It made no sense why Viggo would leave the room to have his henchmen deal with John Wick. It was ridiculous. This is the boogeyman killer himself. Viggo, you've told us this. You've told us how crazy John Wick is. And so all of a sudden, you going to leave and just trust that your henchman is going to take care of the task? Come on. How many impossible tasks have this guy pulled off? How many times this guy have escaped death and you're going to leave? You might want to make sure that the job gets done, Viggo. I thought that was a pretty lazy writing there. Especially considering, this is John Wick. You would think Viggo would want to pull the trigger himself, right? It's not like Viggo has anything better. Viggo, what better do you have to do than to pull the trigger on John Wick yourself? Made no sense. So that's some of the down on the screenplay, but here's the all around. I gave you the up, I gave you the down. Here's the all around. Guys, I really was impressed with the screenplay. And I gotta say that the world they built is noteworthy. They're gonna get a noteworthy bonus because of that. The world they built was immersive. It was amazing. It was well written. They seemed to have thought of everything. They really made it feel like a world. It didn't feel like a gimmick. It felt like a real criminal underground world. I was like, man, is this real? What's going on, right? It was really, really cool. And the way they played everything off, the way people knew each other, I absolutely loved it. That was really cool. So overall, I was very impressed with the screenplay. And, especially for an action movie, was not expecting that. It was simple, but it was effective. So let me go ahead and give this thing a score and a verdict. John Wick's, the screenplay, it earned 65%, scoring 14.3 out of 22 points. So this is a decent screenplay with a major noteworthy bonus. All right, now let's move on to the next slice of this movie pie, and that would be the performances. As I said up top, I don't believe Keanu Reeves is a horrible actor. I think he's a really serviceable actor. Like particular roles, he just immersed himself in them. One of those roles, of course, was Neo in The Matrix. He just became Neo. In fact, I'm not saying that no other actor could have done it, but it's really difficult for me to imagine another actor playing Neo in The Matrix because Keanu Reeves just lost himself in that role. Folks, besides The Matrix, besides Neo, Keanu Reeves, he's John Wick. Keanu Reeves is the boogeyman in The Boogeyman Killer. Oh my goodness. I absolutely loved it. I mentioned already, it didn't have the best dialogue, but the way Keanu Reeves delivered the dialogue, his performance was just amazing. I got lost. I got goosebumps with his look, his walk, his expressions. I mean, it was just the best. I absolutely loved it. And here's the thing. Again, he wasn't on my radar. I wasn't expecting much from him. And when he came out and just did it, and the fact that he did all of that work in terms of the gun fu and the stunts and all of that stuff, he really leaned into all of those things. Really was impressive. I mean, he's an impressive guy in general, but man, it was just amazing. I absolutely loved him as John Wick because here's the thing about his performance. We had to believe three things about John Wick. Three main things that we had to believe about the character of John Wick. First, we had to believe that he was a bad mama jamma, as they say back in the day. Bad mama jamma, right? We had to believe that he was the boogeyman killer himself. We had to believe that he was a man of focus, a man of precision, discipline, capable of impossible tasks. We had to believe that. We also had to believe not only that he was a focused, sheer will, cold stone killer kind of guy, we also had to believe that he really wanted out of the life. We had to believe that he didn't want to have anything to do with the business. He didn't want to have anything to do with the business. And the third thing that we had to believe is we had to believe that he loved his wife. We had to believe that he loved his wife. If you think about it, all three of those things about the John Wick character, title of the movie, if those three things did not come across, that he wasn't a killer, that he didn't actually love his wife, that he didn't actually want to be out of the business, like maybe he secretly wanted to get back in the business, if those things were not capable, was not present with Keanu Reeves' performance, everything falls apart. But it didn't. The way he emoted, I felt like he really loved his wife. Just the different comments and the expressions he gave when people asked him, "Are you back?" I felt like he really didn't want to have anything to do with this business. And then of course, in terms of the Stone Cold Killer, folks, it is showcased throughout the entire film. The dude is the John Wick Stone Cold Killer. So he did a great job. So Keanu Reeves, definitely one of the up. Another up is Michael Nyqvist. I hadn't seen Michael in anything. The guy who plays Vigo. As Vigo, I thought he did a great job opposite John Wick. In fact, if you think about it, he had a tough job as well, because there was at least two things you had to believe about Vigo, about his character, in order to really come across as believable. Again, immersing us into this world that they've created. The first thing is that you had to believe that he was this terrifying mob boss, right? You had to believe that this guy was in charge, that he commanded an army at his fingertips, right? That he was somebody to be feared. But then right along with that, you also had to believe that this character feared John Wick. So how do you have a character that is this terrifying mob boss in charge, but also someone who is terrified of the boogeyman, the Baba Yaga? How do you do that? Well, folks, this is how you do it with Michael Nyqvist. He did a great job. He really showed us the emotions, just the little expressions that he would have, like with that phone call that was also in the trailer. You remember that? The phone call where, he was like, "Hey, I heard you struck my son." Can I ask why? Well, sir, he stole John Wick's car and killed his dog. Oh. that was just give him an Oscar, bro. I mean, that was great. I think that was just amazingly fantastic. Michael Nichols did a great job. Ian McShane as Winston. He's the great Ian McShane. I mean, what else can you say? He did a great job. I mean, when I saw that Ian McShane was in the trailer, that he was in this movie, I wasn't sure how much of Ian we were going to get. But man, he was amazing. I absolutely love Winston. His character really brought a different element. And if it wasn't for Winston's character, if it wasn't for Ian McShane and the way that he performed, the world of the Continental and everything would have come across a little bit more flat. So Ian McShane really pulled that through. Lance Reddick as the hotel manager. Nice to see you again, Mr. Wick. Yeah, I love it. He did a great job. Again, another character that added off the elements, but the way that Lance played him really, really leaned. And then, of course, for me on the up is William Dafoe as Marcus. Now, William, he didn't really have a lot of interactions and dialogue, but he had enough peppered throughout the movie, right and leading up until his death. And so it was really amazing kind of seeing a different angle, a different type of personality. You also have Miss Perkins. You have these different personalities within this criminal underground, these different type of hitmen and women. I thought that William Dafoe did a great job as Marcus. So those are all of the up, but I got to give you the down. Guys, listen, Alfie Allen as Yusuf, I'm sorry. Just no, he didn't do it for me. His performance, I felt, was overperformed. I felt he really played up the part, and he was just annoying. I mean, look, I know what you guys are going to say, but Trey, his character is supposed to be annoying. I get it. His character is supposed to be annoying, and he was really good at being annoying. Here's the other thing, though. His friends, the two doofuses, they also were annoying, but they didn't bother me. Their performance, I felt like, was a little bit more mellowed out to a realistic level. But, standing alongside all of these great performances, I'm sorry, Alfie Allen's performance really brought it down for me. He just overacted, he overperformed, and it just wasn't, considering that he was the main target of the boogeyman killer, it just really pulled me out of the movie. Well, I wouldn't say it pulled me out of the movies, but his performance definitely reminded me that I wasn't quite in this world. So Alfie Allen definitely is the down, but the all around is this, guys. There was nothing noteworthy on the academic level, in terms of an Academy level performance. However, overall, the majority of the performance was really well done. It was well done enough to make me believe that these were characters that belong within this world, which is what you want your performers to do. So generally, yeah, it did a really good job. So let's go ahead and score this slice of the pie, the performances. It gets a 74%, scoring 12.6 out of 17 points, making their performances a good slice. All right, now let's move on to the next slice of this movie pie, and that would be the visuals. All right, starting with the up is this. The medium is live action. It is intended to be realistic, and it was really realistic. Now, I know what you're saying. Listen, it was an action movie. There was a lot of ridiculous things that was in here. But while I'm watching the movie, the visuals that I'm seeing felt like they were what I would see if I was physically there on scene. And the way that they pulled that off was just amazing. First of all, let's start here. The scenery was beautiful. The colors was colorful and but it still seemed realistic. The color grading was amazingly fantastic. They did a great job. The scene transitions was phenomenal. They were amazing. That scene where John, do you guys remember? And that scene was right after he had entered the Continental and he has suited up. I think he was about to go down to meet with Winston. And so the scene is where the cinematography was just phenomenal in this movie. The camera was facing John Wick's face. So you saw his face and it was coming this way. And then as you were coming this way, or actually you were following him from behind, and then he went into this dark space, and then he came out of the dark space facing this way. It was, you guys watch the movie again. When you sit, that scene was so seamless. It was amazingly visually stunning. The way they pulled it off was great. I mean, it was very creative. And the whole visuals in this entire film was very, very creative. The way that they shot things. They didn't just shoot the action shot. They got creative with how they shot the action shot. And I thought that was just fantastic. Very, very amazing. The action with the gung fu, next level. I appreciated being able to actually see the action rather than this jump cutscene stuff. All of the crazy stuff. And I love Jason Bourne, but you guys know what I'm talking about. You know, there was a lot of this quick cut scenes in Jason Bourne. And to some extent it can work effectively, but it had been overdone in so many different action movies, superhero movies, all alike. But not in John Wick. In John Wick, they take the action seriously. I mean, it was great. I really love being able to see, and I think that that helped me to be able to feel like it was believable, like it was realistic, because I'm able to actually see what's going on. Just great. I love it. Absolutely love it. And the choreography with the gung fu seemed realistic. You know, I even like the text that appeared on the screen. You know, sometimes I get bothered by when movies put text on the screen. You got to get real serious about why you're putting text on the screen when you're making your movie. Because the idea of the movie, generally speaking, is that you want us to be immersed in your film. So putting text on the screen, outside of like credits, of course, just kind of really have the tendency to take a viewer out of the film. It didn't do that for me. For some reason, the text on the screen when it says Boogeyman, or, you know, all of the different things that was there, it actually pulled me more further into the movie. And the text itself was visually beautiful. It felt like it matched the movie. So visually, that was the up. And guess what, guys? I got no down. There is no down that I have personally about the visuals in this slice of the pie in this movie. So yeah, I got no down. So all around, listen, the choreography, the gung fu was absolutely noteworthy. It was absolutely noteworthy. I thought it was amazingly well done. It was unique. It was creative. Definitely absolutely noteworthy. They're going to get a noteworthy bonus for that. And overall, I was beyond impressed with this slice of the pie. I was beyond impressed. I got nothing but positive things to say. So let me go ahead and give this thing a score and a verdict. And no surprise, the visuals, it gets 100%, scoring 11 out of 11 points, making the visuals a masterful slice with a minor noteworthy bonus. All right, now let's move on to the next slice of this movie pie, and that would be the audio. Oh, hey, how's it going? Just cutting in here. This is Trey. Hey, you're enjoying yourself? You know what? If you are, go ahead, give me an up. Just go ahead right there. You know, it's right down there. Give me an up if you're enjoying yourself. So, you know, just join my little break. I mean, we got to get breaks too. You know, YouTubers get breaks too, right? Okay. Back to the movie pie. All right, let's get back to John Wick. With the audio, let's start with the up. The score was absolutely amazing. I mean, it felt like it belonged. I mean, if I was John Wick and I was walking around in the world of these continental criminal underground amazing goodness, that the score would be exactly how I would imagine I would be walking around hearing in my head. It felt like it belonged. They did a great job with that score. Little rocky, I mean, it was just seamless. You know, the job of a great score, you know, sometimes, you know, you want to blend in really well where it does, you don't pay attention to it because it feels like it belongs and it unites with what you're seeing. But it also stands out uniquely if you pause to hear it. and that was this score. The score was great. I loved it. This particularly that main theme. And here's another up. The sound effects were great. You know, people underestimate sound effects. It takes a lot to really match up the sound when someone gets hit. And let's face it, folks, this movie had a lot of sound effects with the guns and you know, sorry if that was in your ear. All of the crazy things. This thing had a lot of sound effects to get through. And they did a great job with those sound effects. It sounded really well done. And so, you know, hey, it sounded realistic. It helped bring you into the world. But here is the down. Guys, look, I don't know if you noticed, maybe it's just me, but the audio was not mixed well. I mean, it wasn't balanced. Like there would be times and scenes, whether it's a dialogue scene or something, and the music will be super low. And then the very next scene, it would be super loud. And then vice versa. Sometimes it would be super loud and all of a sudden it just dropped super low. Like it just was not, it didn't flow quite as well for times, you know. And this goes for the music and the sound effects and the dialogue across the board. The elements themselves were great, music and the sound effects, but the way they were mixed, it didn't flow well. So that's the down. But all around, I did enjoy the score, the sound effects and those things, but definitely wish that it was mixed a little bit better. Let's go ahead and give this slice, the audio, a score and a verdict. And for this slice, it gets 81%, scoring 8.9 out of 11 points, making the audio a great slice. All right, so now it's time to move on to the next slice of this movie pie, and that will be the direction. Chad Stahelski and David Leitch, you guys did a wonderful job overall directing this film. As first-time directors, at least on a big project like this, maybe even the first time directing any project whatsoever, it was fantastic. Bravo. I mean, I was not expecting. I mean, here's the thing. You can have all of the things that I've talked about that I enjoyed about the screenplay, the performances, all of those things. They would mean nothing if it wasn't for the directors leading the helm in a particular direction that they took in this movie. I thought was a really well done job. Grade A job. And and what I mean by that is the choices they made were really, really good. The choices they made for the performances, it blended well with the actions. You see, a lot of first-time directors don't really know that you need to add some breathers, right? You need to add some breathers. It can't be just nonstop action from here to here. And so I really enjoyed that they understood you need some breathers. So, you know, they included some moments where John is looking at his phone and looking at old films of his wife and just kind of reminiscing on her. They needed some obviously the first part of the movie where he's bonding with the cute dog. That was a breather. You know, after he buried his wife, it may not have been a lot of action, but it was a lot of heavy. The man just buried his wife. And so, yeah, it may not have been an action, but it was some heavy stuff. We needed a breather. So getting a breather with the dog was really well done. So the pacing was really good. The things that the choices that they made was really impressive. And here's the other thing. I love the scene selection so much that I feel like there was no unnecessary scene within this movie. Generally speaking, I felt like every scene that they selected in the movie, in the way that they put it together, the direction, it really made for a cohesive, swimmingly film, except for one scene. There was one scene that I felt was completely unnecessary. Here's the down. It is the scene in the beginning of the movie. Not the funeral scene. Not that. The scene where it shows like a 3 days earlier type thing or 3 days later type thing. That was completely unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. You could have started that scene right at the beginning of the funeral and just started the movie right at the beginning of the funeral and just not included that scene in the beginning at all. We didn't need to know no 3 days earlier, 3 days later type stuff. Just start us right at the beginning of the movie because it really was distracting. I didn't want to see, like, I'm supposed to because you got to understand all of these things that I'm hearing about John Wick about how he's the boogeyman killer and all of those things. In the back of my mind, while I was in the theater watching this movie for the first time, in the back of my mind, I'm constantly thinking about the very first scene where it shows John Wick all beaten and battered and bruised in a fist fight with Vigo. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, yeah, this guy's a stone cold killer, but every once in a while, I'm like, yeah, but since you showed me that scene earlier, I know that he's not, even if I know that he's going to get some bruises and some scrapes, right? Okay, he's only human, even though he's the boogeyman. The problem is, though, because you showed me that, though, like I know how he gets hurt. I know how he ends up where he ends up. So I feel like that scene was completely unnecessary. And here's the other thing. Although I did not have a problem with Vigo changing his mind at the end and where he decided that he wanted to go fight John Wick, I didn't have a problem with that. But I do feel like that the direction, there could have been more to show the transition, right? Like if the direction would have had a scene where Vigo said a line like, oh, you know what? I'm forget it. Forget life. I'm just going to go all out, or I don't care anymore. Give us some kind of one-liner or something that showed the transition where Vigo went from I'm totally afraid to John Wick to I'm going to try to kill John Wick. Right. And I thought they did. I see the attempt that they did where Vigo, if you remember, he was in the car and he's just laughing and he's like kind of hysterical, maybe even high or something like that. But that wasn't enough. Like I feel like he could have done a little bit more in order to show that progression where he goes from being afraid of John Wick to wanting to kill him. So that's the down. All around, I thought that you guys, for new directors, the direction was really, really impressive. It was very, very impressive. Did a really good job on some of the things that the decisions that you made. And overall, there were so many things that needed to take place in order to pull a movie like this off. Because you're not just giving us a new action movie installment. That's the lazy way. Many attempts have done that. But these guys decided that they wanted to take on something unique and creative and bring something new to the table. And they did just that. If the direction was not there, it would have all fell apart. So many things have had to come together in order to do that. So very, very impressed with the work that they did. So let's go ahead and give this slice, the direction, a score and a verdict. In this slice, it gets 86%, scoring 14.6 points out of 17 points, making the direction a great slice. All right, so now let's move on to the next slice of this movie pie, and that would be the experience. From start to finish, this movie had me entertained and excited. I mean, I was feeling the goosebumps, gripping my seat. I was excited from start to finish. And here's the thing. Seriously, I lost count as to how many times I saw this movie. I saw this movie a number of times in the theater. I brought my boys. I got some friends multiple different times and brought them to the theater to see this movie. When it came out, I saw it multiple times. I can't count how many times I've seen this movie. And that is really what, that really kind of captures the experience that I had with this movie. And there were 5 great things that intrigued me the most about this movie. The first thing is that it was a revenge story, right? You can't get away from a revenge story. I mentioned before that, like, look, these guys, they killed his dog, which was a gift from his dying wife. They got to go. It was a classic revenge story, but again, it was one with a twist. So that was very intriguing. The other thing is it was a great action movie. There was a lot of action in it. They didn't skimp on the action. And then when they were doing the action, they actually showed the action, which was great. So I love that. The other thing that intrigued me was the music. It just really helped pull me in and just immerse me in this wonderful world that they've built, that they've created. And then speaking of that world, the world, it was a really amazing, well-crafted world. I really liked how it was written. It felt realistic. even though it wasn't, obviously, but it really felt like, hey, I can believe that this world exists. I can believe that this criminal underground exists. And then also, speaking of the criminal underground, the mysteries. That's the fifth thing that really gripped me about this slice of the pie. The experience I had, I was really wanting to know more about the coins, about who the cleaners were, about the hotel manager, about the Mr. Wick, Lance Reddick's character. Like, I really wanted to know more about this world. And they gave you enough to let you know that there was more, but they clearly didn't give you everything. And it was very mysterious, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Every time I see this movie, I feel inspired to do something with my life. I don't know. I mean, look, I'm not saying I want to become a hitman. Please don't become a hitman. You get what I'm saying here, right? I'm saying when you look at John Wick's life, like you look at those different things that Viggo had to say about him, a man of vision, a man of focus, sheer will, right? Precision, all of these different things. I'm like, man, I want to be like that. Like, it's just this idea that John Wick is locked on to a single target, and he's not letting go until he hits that target. There's something inspiring about that. There's something inspiring about living a life where you are a legend, where your legend precedes you. And so that's really, really cool. So every time I watch this movie really makes me want to go out and do something with my life. So my experience was really good. That was the up. Here's the down. There were several things that distracted me a few times in this movie, such as, for example, like the audio. I mentioned it. Alfie's performance was just, I don't want to say egregious, but it was definitely something that pulled me out of it was something that distracted me. The scene at the beginning, as I mentioned with the direction, that distracted me, the fact that you put that scene there. But here's the thing. That's the down. That's the only down in terms of that. Honestly, there's a ton of those things distracted me. But here's something that's interesting regarding my experience. Even though those things distracted me, there wasn't really anything that made me get kicked out of the movie. So that's the all around. I was immersed in this story in the world, and I was drawn to the characters of this world from start to finish. So I had some distractions, but I didn't have anything that actually took me out of the movie, that took me out of the experience. The experience was still intact. It's going to get a noteworthy bonus because here's the thing. When you can rewatch an action movie as often as I've rewatched this and still not feel bored, there's something there about the experience. Let's go ahead and give this slice a score and a verdict. It earned 93%, scoring 20.5 out of 22 points. So this was an excellent experience with a massive noteworthy bonus. All right, now we are here for Trey's Tweaks, where I just give you up to 3 tweaks that will make in this movie that would have increased the score and the verdict of the movie. And let me start with this one. The first thing that I would tweak is this. I would have started the movie when the movie starts. I have to narrow it down to that one because it just makes the most sense. Start the movie at the funeral. That is when the actual movie starts. I don't need a 3 days earlier type crap. Just give me the goods right off the bat. So that's the first tweak that I would have made. And the only other tweak, again, I get up to 3, but in this movie, I got 2. That was the first. The second one is this. If John had to fight Viggo in the end, I would have wrote it in a way where it would have naturally happened. So right now you have, with a screenplay, have it to where John already has a gun and they're in the rain and Viggo is unarmed and John tosses away the gun in order to fight Viggo fist to fist. If they wanted John and Viggo to actually duke it out at the end of the movie, I wished I would have tweaked the screenplay to where there would have been something in there to where it would have naturally happened, right? Like, for example, like where if Vigo had the gun and John had to go in and hand-to-hand combat with Vigo to try to get the gun away from him, and then they end up wrestling and fighting and all of that stuff or whatever. Just something to where it was obvious that John would not have made the decision to fight Vigo. I would have tweaked that. I would have made it so that John naturally had to fight Vigo. But that is it, guys. That is the Trey's tweaks. Those are the two tweaks that if they had made, if that's what I would do in order to increase the value of the movie. Again, Trey's tweaks, I'm not trying to change the vision of the film studio or the direction and all that stuff. I'm just trying to make the movie just a little bit better. And those were the tweaks that I would make. All right, yes, we are here. It is time for the Movie Pie Slice Recap. If you remember the screenplay, we said that it was a decent slice and it earned 14.3 points. However, it had a major noteworthy bonus, bringing this slice to 17.3 points. The performances, we said that it was a good slice and it earned 12.6 points. The visuals, we said it was a masterful slice and that baby earned 11 points with a minor noteworthy bonus, bringing it to 12 points. The audio, we said that slice was great, earning 8.9 points. The direction, we also said that slice was great and it earned 14.6 points. The experience, we said that slice was excellent and it earned 20.5 points with a massive noteworthy bonus, bringing it to 25.5 points. If you add all that up, that gives you a score of 90.9 points. Rounded up, out of 100 points, that's 91%. So what does that mean for John Wick? Well, John Wick is an excellent movie. So if this movie was a pie, it would be totally tasty. Well, there you have it. John Wick is an excellent movie. And if it was a pie, it would be totally tasty. And you know what? I think I stand by that. If you were to tell me that I would think John Wick was an excellent movie before I went and saw it the first time in the trailers, I would not believe you, because I wasn't expecting much from an action movie, but what I got was excellent. So that's pretty cool. I love how the Movie Pie formula really helped narrow down my feelings and thoughts about John Wick, but that's just me. What do you guys think? What do you think about John Wick? What do you think about the Movie Pie in itself? Would you like this episode? If you did, please go ahead and give me an up. I really enjoyed John Wick. I think that, dare I say, this is an instant classic. And if you've seen how it has rippled through pop culture, I think that that will stand in time. But I have a question for you. Here's the thing. I mentioned Jason Bourne earlier about with the jump cuts thing. If there was an all-out fight to the death between Jason Bourne and John Wick, who would win? I'll pull up a poll. That is the posing question. Who will win between Jason Bourne and the Boogeyman Killer himself? So go ahead and discuss that below. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe where I'll do all kinds of Movie Pie reviews, detailed reviews just like this one. In fact, you can check out some of those right here, maybe right there. I don't know. Just check them out. And until the next slice of pie, peace out.